Good morning. Welcome again, everybody, to today's Property Subcommittee of the Strategic Policy and Resources Committee. Can we have details of any apologies or substitutions, please?
Apologies from Councillor Lyle, and I'm substituting for him.
Apologies from Councillor McCall, I'm substituting for her.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any declarations of interest with regard to any of the items on today's agenda? No? Okay, thank you. And do I have your permission to sign the minutes of the previous meeting? Or we just approve them? Can we agree the minutes of the previous meeting? Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda is the School Estate Programme Progress Update. Do we have a report from the Director of Education? Greg.
Okay, thank you, Convener. What I propose to do is I'll run through some of the highlights from the last committee back in April, and then also I'll run through the appendix, which starts on page 19, and I'm happy to take any questions as we go. So the first thing to highlight, and you'll see in paragraph 3.1, is obviously the early learning and childcare expansion from 600 hours to 1140 hours is obviously underway. We're obviously carrying out a number of projects within that, and some minor projects as well. And you'll see the major projects highlighted as Insture Primary School, Letham, Oakbank, Rattray and St Ninians Primary School. Since the last meeting, we've had confirmation of the funding from the Scottish Government in totality and now of 16.4 million to take that forward. In 3.2, you will see Kinross Primary School. The school is now fully complete, and the official... Yes, sorry, no problem. And 3.2 in Kinross Primary School, obviously it's now fully complete, and the official opening will happen on the 22nd of November. Lawnforgan Primary School, we're obviously refurbishing the current Grade B listed building and replacing the hall, dining centre and classrooms. Just to note, obviously at the time of writing, the intention was that the planning would be submitted. The planning won't be submitted until this week. However, the project currently is still on time. In 3.4, Tulloch Primary School, we're fully aware that one is fully complete, and the official opening has already taken place. Since the last meeting back in April, you'll see within 4.21 that the Council set its revised capital budget for the next 10 years. An additional 32.5 million was invested within the school estate. In addition to that, you will see within 4.3 is the replacement of Perth High School, which is currently been kind of set up to move forward. So moving on to more on kind of the detail from page 20. What I'll do is I'll run through each one, and happy to take any questions if there are any queries. So firstly, obviously we're on site at Bertha Park, all on track, and the school should open in August 19, or I should say it will open in August 19. Happy to take any questions if there's anything. Blairgowrie Recreational Centre, obviously the budget was reduced in June to 14.7, and we have a specification and a scheduled accommodation to build within that 14.7. You may or may not be aware, obviously we've had some public consultation regarding the Blairgowrie Recreational Centre project, and the major kind of feedback is regarding having a 6th lane, which currently that was not scoped. So at the minute we don't have any kind of consensus of the final schedule of accommodation. So obviously we're still taking that forward, and we need to try and hopefully come to compromise so we can move the project forward and try and deliver on timelines.
Was the 6th lane in the original scope for the original of the project?
6 lanes within the original cost envelope, yes, it would have been.
how do you see this moving forward? What's the time scale? When was the original time frame of it being completed?
I suppose ideally, Councillor Lynn, we would be moving forward quicker than we are at the minute, but until we obviously come to an agreed position regarding the schedule of accommodation, we need to get that consensus.
So when was the original completion date that was in the original project, and when is the project expected to be completed, just roughly, so we can see the difference?
Yeah, I think we're anticipate probably, I think it was late 2021 was probably when we think when the facility will be operational.
My question was, when it was originally put in the capital budget, when was it expected to be completed?
I suppose originally we probably thought 2020, 21. So we are slipping on the original time scale, yes.
Okay, that'll do just nice.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Convener. I was at one of the public meetings up in Blairgowrie about this, and I was just wondering, obviously there was, you've referred, Mr Bowen, to the key request for a 6th lane in the pool, and there are a number of follow-on benefits potentially from that. I was wondering what other elements of the public feedback you were looking to achieve agreement on in terms of the final paragraph about agreeing with stakeholders the proposed schedule of accommodation, and also the planned date for that, the end of consultation period and development of the brief is November 2018. That's obviously, November's just over a week away. Do we see ourselves managing to stick to delivering that within the next 5 weeks or so, or are we potentially looking at further processes or discussions which may extend beyond November?
I think in the kind of feedback, obviously the major feedback was from the meeting was the 6th lane. Obviously appreciate there's a number of the fitness suite being larger than it currently is, was also suggested, as well as to do with the cafe, but we think there's ways we can work with the community and come up with solutions. I suppose to move forward at the minute, because obviously we, as officers we only have 14.7 million to spend on this project, so until we can come to a compromise of what that would look like, at the public meeting we obviously did discuss or offer, well, we didn't offer possibilities, but we did discuss with at the public meeting about what could be sacrificed to allow the 6th lane. Obviously the clear message back was no, we need to invest more money within the project. Unfortunately that's not within my gift to allocate more funding to the project. So it'd obviously be up to councillors to invest further. If not, I only have the permission to spend the 14.7, which unfortunately would mean I could currently only build a 5-lane pool.
And in terms of the November sort of timeline for that?
Yeah, obviously it's obviously been quite quiet over the last couple of weeks. We would need to work out a way of trying to engage further with the community to see is there further negotiation on the final accommodation to try and reach agreement on that, which obviously appreciate November is next week, so the time scales will be tight to do something during November, unless we did have another meeting and come to consensus. I suppose that's the only way we could probably deliver by the end of November and putting forward the new project request form for the project.
Thank you.
Were the community provided any options on what would have to be sacrificed in terms of other facilities if there was to be a 6-lane pool instead? I mean, or does it get to the stage that the level of facilities that would be removed from the project to cover that would be unacceptable?
Well, we asked at the public meeting about what would be considered as being able to be removed as part of the scheduled accommodation. but the message was probably loud and clear that no, we don't want to reduce anything further, and we want the 6th lane. So that's why we've got a bit of a stalemate. There was no kind of negotiation at that particular meeting on what could come out to allow it to be affordable.
Councillor Forbes, well, Councillor Links composing his thoughts.
I was just wondering, sorry, no, I was looking for your permission there, convener, to speak. I was at the meeting as well, and I've seen the subsequent conversations around there. I think it's going to be very hard to come to an agreement, as you've got stated in there, with stakeholders, because the community were looking for more facilities than was even in the original budget. Do you think that at the end of the day we'll probably just have to impose something and make the decisions ourselves rather than the community coming together, because there's different elements within the community that will want different things? You've got a swimming club, a football club, a fitness club area. If we're sticking the 14.7 million, which you have to do, something's going to have to be cut.
I suppose, Councillor, and ideally we would like to come to compromise to everybody's benefit. That is probably going to be difficult based on obviously the public meeting.
Working within the current financial envelope on that, Councillor Forbes.
Can I ask a couple of questions about the, I think there was a soft play area mooted in a coffee shop or a cafe of some sort. What was the public feeling on that? Because I'm just slightly concerned that our job is not to provide a coffee shop when Blairgowrie's got plenty of them. Could we be seen to be competing with people in there?
I think we've had engagement with and potential social enterprises to try and to give an offer within the facility. The 6th lane was the strong feedback from the public.
Was the cafe and the soft play area were removed already to get to 14.7 million, weren't they?
Just get my details here.
So if they're removed, they're not part of this discussion really. They were already taken out.
Yeah, I think you're right, they were. But my point was, were the public that concerned about it? And was that something the council should be doing, would be opening a coffee shop? That was really my point. Yeah. I know the public are concerned about the 5-lane stroke 6-lane pool, but I'm really looking for your views on whether the concern was about the removal of the coffee shop and the kiddies play area.
I don't think that was a major.
I think more the children's soft play area, but I don't think that's already taken out to get to the 14.7 million, as it's taken away a lane. And I think removing the size of the dance floor studio was more of a problem than the cafe, etc.
Okay, Councillor Shires has been waiting patiently to get in.
Yeah. Thank you, convener. I thought it was really positive that the community were willing to engage about a social enterprise-led cafe facility that wouldn't necessarily be there all the time, but would be there at sort of peak time. So I thought that was actually quite a positive opportunity for the various different social enterprises that have been engaged with. And wanted to ask about the user reference groups. I know there's been sort of general chat with groups within or consultation more than chat, but there's been quite a lot of chat as well. Consultation with groups within the community. I'm conscious that they have mostly been in Blairgowrie itself, and I was interested in what feedback or consultation there have been with groups out with Blairgowrie, given this is meant to serve the whole of the high school catchment area. When the user reference group will be set up and what form that's looking like taking at the moment. Councillor Forbes mentioned the soft play area, and we purchased, I presume it was the council, I can't remember if it was us or Live Active, we purchased equipment.
Yes. Yeah.
That presumably can move over to the new facility on similar terms to operates quite just now, which I understand is quite successful actually.
Yes,
for Live Active.
Yeah, the council funded that, and Live Active Leisure provided the service. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, previously that was a few years, probably 5-6 years ago, I think maybe.
And presumably the 6th lane will have a revenue implication in terms of running costs. Have we got any detail on what that's likely to be?
Yes, sorry, Councillor Shah, just so I make sure I answer your questions. Yeah, sorry, just want to.
So the user reference group.
Yeah.
Consultation with groups out with Blairgowrie itself, because I'm quite concerned that the public meeting that we had, I don't recall there were many, if any, people from other than obviously Councillor Lang and Councillor Stewart. I'm not conscious there was a lot of people from out with Blairgowrie itself, and obviously this facility is meant for the wider catchment area.
Yeah.
And I'm now struggling with the discussion with the social enterprises about the cafe and whether the soft play equipment currently at the recce can be transferred into the new one, and the income stream that I think Live Active have for parties and various other things. Using that, I presume that will continue.
Yeah, and then
The revenue
costs. That was it. Yeah. So obviously we've got set up a project board. So the board will meet at the start of November. So the board will need to obviously decide on next steps of the process to take the centre forward. Yes, I think there's been discussions about and I think interest in the social enterprise being created, and so obviously any opportunity we can to try and make the facility the best it can, we will do that. Yes, the soft play, I think from memory, because I think I was involved when it was purchased probably about 5 or 6 years ago, because there was public interest in the local community about having the soft play, which the council purchased and Live Active Leisure run. So yes, that was obviously still would be available. The revenue costs, obviously it's very early stages in trying to understand what these figures until they obviously become reality. I think the extra lane would probably cost the council around about another I think it's about £5,500 a year is the estimated cost, because obviously an extra lane needs to be heated, that kind of stuff. Just on the wider revenue implications, obviously we do subsidise the centre between 300,000 and 400,000 from memory approximately. One of the reasons in looking at the scope of the project was the additional revenue implications. So it was going to be roughly an extra 83,000 of increased subsidy to run the centre, and that was one of the challenges we were given from the Chief Executive and the Executive Office team about trying to reduce these, obviously appreciating the financial climate. So obviously when we reduced the spec down to the current spec as it stands, we reduced that, the additional revenue costs down to about £57,000. But to go into the extra 6 lane, we require another 5,500. So we're still going to, the council's still going to have to fund to value about an extra 60,000. So you're probably talking about £450,000 subsidy to run the facility. So it's not we appreciate all the views that everybody wants and the requirements, but equally we're trying to be sensible in approach to managing the facility and the funding we currently have available.
Sorry, Greg, I got lost in some of the figures there. What did you say that the subsidy per annum was roughly?
Currently, to run the centre at the minute, I think it's just short of 400,000 currently. So when we came up with the new project for the original 17.7, it was increasing by around about £83,000. So that would take it up to not miles away from £500,000 subsidy of running the facility. We were tasked to try and reduce that, and we reduced that roughly by about £26,000 to where we are now. So you're probably looking at running that facility as a subsidy of around about 450,000-60,000. To increase the extra lane and it's very speculative figures, but probably another £5,500 a year to run the extra 6 lane.
For clarity, when you say subsidise the facility, is there an allowance in that, or have you aggregated the usage of the school out of that? That 426,000, whatever it was, must include the usage by the school. So it's not really subsidising the community project to 426,000 because it has to be supplied for the school curriculum.
Yeah. The schools generally have the usage of the facility during the term time and during the school operating hours.
Yeah, so to call it a subsidy for Blairgowrie Recreation Centres is a kind of a misnomer, because it's only subsidising for the community the time when the school isn't using it.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
So if you put a value on what it is for the school, it brings the subsidy right down.
Yeah.
it's still going to be £450 in pound notes, regardless of how it's divvied up.
But we have to use it for
Councillor Stewart's been trying to get in.
It was just an observation, I think, about the running costs and the revenues and how much the subsidy, or however you want to describe it, would be in terms of what will be, even as it stands, a larger, newer, modern facility, potentially with a 6th lane. Then the usage of the centre might increase, and therefore the number of people accessing the services and paying for the services there might offset. I don't think there was a calculation about how much the new centre would bring in terms of new money from the public using it, as opposed to currently.
As part of those kind of figures and those projections, we kind of allowed for increase in uptake of usage. So that was kind of part of the kind of figure, how it was calculated, was assumed increase in usage.
Councillor Dugan.
Thanks, Convener. I've just been listening to the back and forward between members and Mr. Boland, and it seems to me, maybe I'm being too simplistic, but we've got a very well organised, very well informed community who are expressing a very sincere and well thought out desire for 6 lanes, which this budget can't afford. And my concern is that officers find themselves in an impossible situation. Do you think that's accurate, or am I missing something?
I wouldn't like to describe the situation that officers find themselves in as impossible, Councillor Dugan. We're working within a budget envelope of 14 million and are going to deliver leisure facilities to that value. The compromise solution that's been devised by the council to come within that budget is for a 5-lane pool, and that's what consultation and engagement with the community is about at the moment. So.
Thanks for that clarity. So that they will be getting a 5-lane pool.
As I say, the discussions with the community are ongoing on delivering leisure facilities to the value of the budget allocation that we've provided.
Thank you. So if I could just ask Mr. Boland, is it possible to deliver 6 lanes within the current budget?
Currently, no.
Are there any other questions on this item on the agenda, or can we move on to the next project?
It was just a very brief comment that in terms of the consultation with the wider public outside Blairgowrie, I know that there have been concerns expressed within my ward that the centralisation of the spend in one centre in one place potentially undermines the spreading out of the availability of leisure services within the wider East Perthshire, Strathty type area. So while the message from the public meeting in Blairgowrie was very clear in response to Councillor Dugan's question, there are contrary views within elements of the wider community within the sort of Vale of Strathmore, Strathty type area about where the council's investment would be best placed and whether it's all best done through one central centre or whether in general terms council spending would be best devolved and spread out to provide leisure services closer to those who use them and to provide a greater diversity across the wider area.
Just to respond to that, I suppose we have that kind of feedback, but I suppose fundamentally the facility is the school's PE department. So that kind of restricts the opportunities we have available to us.
Sorry, Councillor Shires.
Just to follow on from Councillor Stewart's comments, and you'll have heard it yourself, Mr Boland, at the community meeting at the Adult Resource Centre, was the concern of people who live within that area also, that the increased potential footfall at the recreation centre, which doesn't have a massive amount of car parking, etc. around it, might potentially create further problems for the sort of neighbourhood in that area also. And that's something I really want us to be aware as we take the project forward, is to maximise the use of the external space around the school, but also to look at, you know, whether we can work with public sector, public transport providers, etc., to look at access, because potentially there is an issue there. And that's where supporting the points that Councillor Stewart made about you know, the investment down at Davy Park, the Ailith School, and promoting the facilities that are there as well, to sort of spread the load a wee bit more would be good.
I think that came from the meeting as well, was the concern about parking and traffic, etc. But I would have no concerns at all about increasing the footfall in this climate. We need to increase the footfall because more people going to a recreation centre is obviously beneficial for everybody in Perth Kinross.
Okay, thank you for that. Greg, can you take us on to Inchtour Primary School? At Inchtour Primary School, as part of the early years expansion, there'll be a new nursery built on the site, so that's progressing forward. Moving over the page, Kinross Primary School we've touched on earlier, so it's now fully complete, and the official opening will happen on the 22nd of November. Letham Primary School, a nursery extension there as part of the Early Learning and Childcare extension, and also as part of that project, we're obviously, while we're on site, doing a number of other things, infrastructure upgrades, toilet upgrades, decoration, new flooring and technology upgrades. So as part of that, Letham Primary School will benefit from wider than just the additional nursery capacity. So that's moving forward and will be operational August 20. Longforgan Primary School, I think probably touched on earlier, the planning application will go in this week. Obviously it's a Grade B listed building, which will provide a challenge when we're on site, but there's going to be obviously works to the main building, replacement of the hall, the dining centre, and classrooms. Moving on to Oakbank, obviously that will be an extension.
Sorry, Greg, I think Councillor Forbes had some questions.
Sorry.
Thanks. There's just really one question that at the community meeting at the school, there was quite a lot of the community complaining about lack of consultation over the school, and I know there were some letters sent out, but people who, I think 3 people approached me who lived within 100 metres or so of the school were saying they didn't get one. Is that correct, or would that be normal, or do you think they're just complaining?
If it was part of the formal planning application, that's a key process. But other consultation would have been led by the school.
Yeah, so when the official planning goes in, which will go in this week, then that'll be part of the official wider engagement with wider than school. So it'll be covered the neighbours and that kind of stuff.
This was a letter just informing people of what was happening and the community meeting in the school. Now maybe people didn't get the letter, maybe they did go through the door. Do you know how they were delivered, or what's the normal process for that, to invite the local community to an event that would talk about something like this?
It would have been done, for the meeting that took place, it would have been done through the head teacher. And then the planning, then obviously that'll be the more official notification. So I can maybe pick that up directly with you, just to make sure we cover all the bases, yeah.
Will the planning information not only be residences within 20 metres of the school? It'll not be all the...
Yes, well, 100
Yeah, just for clarification, this was a letter about an open event at the school to inform the community of what was happening. It wasn't, the planning application, as far as I'm aware, is not submitted yet. Or is about to be submitted, but this was a few weeks ago, so this was nothing to do with planning. This was to invite people to the event at the school, And I think the feeling from the community was that the neighbours who lived immediately opposite, immediately left and right of the school, and all the parents were invited, but other people who live nearby, who I think reasonably could be affected by the changes, particularly during the construction phase, didn't get invited. And that was really what my question was about. But I'm happy to pick this up with you later. It's very local issues, so it's probably not relevant for right now. Thank you.
I think it was up to Oakbank. So Oakbank, as part of the early years expansion, will obviously have an extended nursery provision. Moving on, we've got Perth Academy, Sports Hall.
Just before we, if that's okay, before we go on to Perth Academy, all of these additional early years provisions, the sources of funding have got the same blanket sentence. I think it would have been quite helpful to know exactly how much investment was being made in these various projects, because it's clearly quite substantial, but we don't know what that is.
Councillor Duggan, we hope to draw the money down at SPNR at the end of November. Of course, it was very early stages. We've got estimates. I'm happy to, Mr. Stephen can share the kind of estimate value to give you an indication of the value. But until we get to the point where we really think the figure's pretty accurate, and then we'll go to SPNR at the end of the month, then we'll draw it down. So apologise for not putting the details just because we're not confident yet of the final figures. But I'm happy to give you an indication of the kind of value. Just to these are the more major projects within this report.
Well, just verbally, just I mean, nobody's going to hold you to it. Approximately how much?
Yeah.
I'll run it.
Stephen can run us through.
Okay, Longforgan's 5.2 million. I've got Methven at 1.7, Letham at 5.7, Cooper Angus at 230,000, Rattray. Currently, Rattray was told, but Rattray is currently under discussion. Potentially 3.4. St Ninian's 0.7 million. Inchture 1.6. Oakbank 0.6. And Copec at 60,000.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, it's all going well. Hopefully, we'll draw down the money at the end of November. I think it was on the Perth Academy. So Sports Hall has been put on hold. Obviously, the refurbishment works for the full site as part of taking that forward. The figures were obviously increasing significantly. So I suppose as council officers, we've been considering everything we do within the school and considering it as a replacement of the school a better option than the refurbishment. So that's currently being ongoing and on hold. So works continue on site. The works we've kind of undertaken at the Academy, which were essential, which were fireworks, drainage and heating. So that project, the Sports Hall currently hasn't been procured as of today. Until we identify the long-term best efficient model for Perth Academy School. Rattray Primary School.
Sorry. Mr. Boland and his colleagues, I think, should have all of our sympathies when they undertake to project manage the works at the Academy. Appreciate the context that we got in terms of the sports hall, but I just wanted a little bit more clarity on, are we still firmly in the space whereby we're trying to ascertain what to do with Perth Academy in terms of, are we going to do, is the business case still robust for refurbishment, or is that under review?
It's currently under review at the minute. We'd propose to have a finalised updated business case leading up to the capital budget set in February about what is the best for the council, whether it's a replacement or carry on doing the refurbishment. I think at the minute we're taking the minimalist approach to the school and prioritising the priority works like the fireworks, like the drainage, like the heating, to make sure the school is fully operational. The longer term, then obviously then it it gets back to a financial decision. So the business case we will present leading up to February next year regarding the long-term future of Perth Academy, whether it's a replacement or do we continue with the refurbishment. Because the sports hall is, hasn't been prioritised, seen as essential. That's the reason that particular project is on hold at the minute.
Okay, thank you.
I'm saying, is that also dependent on getting some sort of signals from the Scottish Government as to their future investment plans for schools within the area?
Well, obviously, any opportunity we can from Scottish Government funding, we obviously look to that. There's been no confirmation of funding. The late speculation there might be something later this calendar year, but obviously that is subject to being announced. So at the minute, yes, we want to be in a position we know where we are, what we want to do, and if money came along, then obviously that would be to advantage to the council.
We are continuing with all the works at the moment, drainage, heating, roofing, etc. Just for members' knowledge, the main refurbishment works were commencing in late 2021, so 2 years away. So hence that's a period of still, so it's not a project that was expected to have started now.
Thank you for that. Any other questions on Perth Academy?
Rattray Primary School is due to be extended as part of the early years development. As part of that project, we were obviously going to provide significant infrastructure works within the site, including heating upgrades, rewiring the toilets, rewiring, toilet refurbishments, decoration, flooring, and technology upgrades. You may have not have seen, obviously. Again, we're having a bit of a discussion with the parent council. Our preferred option we proposed wasn't seen as the ideal option for the local community. So further meetings have been taking place and will continue to take place about what the final solution will be for Rattray. So obviously Rattray currently then is obviously at risk of being able to be delivered by August 2020. But we're working up other designs based on the feedback from the parent council, and I'd hope soon we can try and come to a compromise. But once again, that project's providing a challenge to us all.
Can I just ask, what consultation was there with the community, etc., before your original proposal?
We took the kind of, we'd obviously been working up a number of designs with Stephen and his colleagues, and our preferred option we shared in June. Obviously at that point in time we realised some of the staff and some of the community weren't impressed with that option. We had a further meeting in August, once again trying to talk through these options, which didn't prove successful, and we've had a further meeting at the end of September, once again with the community and the parent council, which we still can't come to a compromise. There's been engagement just leading up to the holidays with the parent council chair, and those negotiations will need to continue. Obviously now it's the project and delivery date is it's going to provide very challenging, even on the assumption we get agreement reasonably quick.
I've got Councillor Forbes and Councillor Shires.
I'm just reading what I read in the press, of course, and the wording at the bottom of the paper, and I think you've probably answered my first question, was this is not normal. Do you have an idea of what it costs the council to do these extra consultations?
Well, I suppose it's officers' time and probably more importantly Stephen and his architects having to design all the options up, which is obviously comes at a cost. I probably can't quantify. I don't know if
it's as long as it takes, depending on the man hours. But once you start looking at having to put 3 or 4 different options and costing it, and there's there's obviously how much certainty do you want around those options. It's consultants' times, it's officers' times, and it can easily run into tens of thousands of pounds.
And obviously, the longer we take, obviously, more expensive it comes.
I think Councillor Ling made a comment when we were talking about the swimming pools, that does there come a point where you just have to say, well, in our expertise, this is the right way to go? And I think he used the phrase impose it on people. Maybe I'm misquoting you, can't remember, but that sort of thing. Is there a point that has to come, do you think?
I think, yes, that point in time will potentially have to come. I suppose what we're trying to do is not get to that point, because it's probably not to the best satisfaction of everybody concerned. But at one point, we maybe need to come to conclusion in whatever decisions making, whether it's Blairgowrie or whether it's Rattray, that time might come. We haven't got to that point yet, but as more and more time goes on, then that point will come.
Can I just clarify on the imposition part, please? No, you're correct. That was not a desired outcome of mine imposing it.
Okay, thank you, guys. It seems to be a personal discussion that you maybe sort out after the meeting. Councillor Shires, please.
Thank you, Convener. I was interested in use of the word compromise, Greg, because I think actually where we've got to with this whole project is quite an interesting place, because it's a place we probably should have been earlier with when Rattray Connect was built, that actually seeing that whole community and school facility as one instead of it still literally being a wall between the two buildings.
Yeah.
Although it has been difficult, I think it's been very difficult. I think where we have got to, and the detailed investment that's going to be made in Rattray School, which clearly had been a long-running issue that we perhaps hadn't been made aware of by parents because they hadn't expressed their views quite so forcefully until it came to that meeting, that actually, although it has been difficult, there has to be an element of compromise on some elements of it. I think actually where we're going to get to with it at the end of this is going to be a pretty good place for Rattray, for the school, for the community, and for the community facilities at Connect. So I think I accept Councillor Forbes' point that it has taken a lot of officers' time. I would thank the officers for the way they've conducted themselves, because it's not been easy. But I think hopefully where we're going to get to at the end of this is going to be a pretty good place for the school, which really needs it.
Thank you for that, Councillor Shires. Councillor Ling.
Yes, I think I agree with Councillor Shires there. It's not all about the cost in pounds and pence of doing the consultation. It's the cost of the council and the reputation if you don't do it, and you end up. So it's probably money well spent on officers' time, etc., to get to a situation where everybody can be reasonably comfortable. So I think that it's well worthwhile doing these consultations.
Thank you for that.
Okay, moving on, St Ninians Primary School. You might be familiar, that was a school that was considered under the school state because it met the capacity, under capacity. It's obviously Lifelong Learning agreed that the school would remain as was, but would have a nursery added. So as part of creating extra capacity for early years, the school will be reconfigured and a nursery will be included. So that's moving forward. And I think then finally, Tulloch Primary School, which is now fully operational and has had its official opening.
Convener, just on Tulloch, an exceptional building by any measure. I assume Kinross is just as impressive. However, the key milestones indicate that completion of external works will be August this year. I hope they are finished now, but they weren't finished in August.
All I can do, I think, I'll check, confirm where it was in August in terms of was it considered snagging. I think some of the external works obviously depend on growing seasons. So there's always this issue when actually you get practical completion on something that's newly sold. But I can come back to you on that one.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. It was a general question. If it was helpful to go through the appendices on each of those projects, but if I took you back to 3.1 in the report, the early learning and childcare expansion, it was a general question, if that's okay, Mr. Boland, just in terms of how we have determined where the early learning and childcare expansion capital investment goes as a priority, and whether we're making sure whether we're using it to enhance current provision, or whether we're making sure, for example, that we're focusing on areas of under-provision first, whether that was a consideration in the prioritisation of the project.
Yeah, I suppose the capital investment followed the population. So we did analysis of the population across Perth and Kinross, our current nursery capacity internally, and as well with our partners across the whole Perth and Kinross area. So it was really based on the population of Perth and Kinross, as well as looking at obviously increasing the 600 hours to 1140 hours. In some locations we could just do that and it was not a problem. Where and that's where we're doing the capital investment, is where we couldn't do that and we needed to extend. So it was really based on where these young people are and the capacity available, where the money was spent. There was nothing else behind that except for where we needed to extend the provision, the size of the provision.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Members, can we agree to note the recommendations of the report in section 5? Thank you very much. Mearns, are you taking us through item 5? Oh, sorry. I've just been advised that this is actually a private paper, so if there are any of the members of the public here, or